Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, friends. Welcome to another episode of the Marketing Your Practice podcast. In today's episode, I want to talk with you about what nobody, myself included, is telling you all about marketing. Now, you'd be forgiven for thinking this, that marketing is as simple as throwing a video on Facebook, maybe running a couple of Facebook ads, and then kicking back and watching the new patients come rolling in. Now, unfortunately, it's not that easy. In fact, in most cases, you're going to fail a whole bunch more than you succeed. Yes, you're going to get a whole bunch more no's than yeses, particularly in the early stages when you're starting. But not only when you're brand new at this. In fact, big companies like Coca Cola and Nike and MacDonalds fail more with their marketing than they do succeed. But they have two systems in place. That means that even when they're failing more often than succeeding, their marketing overall is still a success. So I want to talk with you about those two systems and how you can implement them into your practice so you can have more impact and reach, profitability, enjoyment, all of those kind of things. Now, the first thing we need to do is we need to massively increase our failure tolerance. That is, we need to get better at dealing with mistakes and we need to not be paralyzed by them. Now, last Wednesday morning, I was walking with Conan, his normal regular morning walk. And just before we get home, there's a big oval. We stop at this oval, I let him off the lead, he runs around. And like he always does, he goes over to a particular corner there and he does what dogs do. That is, he does an enormous poo. Now, I was bending down to pick it up and I noticed on this particular morning that it felt a lot warmer than what it normally did. Now, the reason it felt a lot warmer is because the bag that I was using to pick it up had a big split in it. And when I tell you that I had dog poo all over my hand, I mean I had it all over my hand. It was disgusting. Now, luckily, just close to where we were was a big puddle. I was able to kind of wash my hand, wipe it on the grass, and then when I got home again, I scrubbed my hand within an inch of its life. Now, I didn't spend the rest of the day angry at myself, telling myself I was a failure, telling Conan he was a failure. I didn't tell myself that bags don't work, I'm never going to use bags again. What I simply did is I washed my hands, I cleaned up, and I moved on. Now, many of you, when you have failures with your marketing, you tell yourself that you're a mistake, that marketing doesn't work, and metaphorically what you're doing is you're walking around with that dog crap on your hand and you're reminding yourself of it again, after again, after again. What we have to do is we have to learn and move on. Now, what I learned from this is I now double check my bags before bending down to pick up Conan's dog poo. Now, the second thing that big marketing companies do is that they don't have a single point of failure. They have what's called redundancy built into the system. Now, the redundancy that I have built into the system with Conan is I had a second bag there with me that day, so I was able to still pick up his dog poo. But for many of you have one avenue by which people can come into your practice, and that one avenue for most of you is kind of word of mouth. And if that's not working, you have no predictable flow of new patients coming into your practice. Now, in computer terms, when we talk about this concept of redundancy, I'm going to read through it here. They talk about a single point of failure. So at my practice, the backup system that we have to back up all our computers there, if one of the disks doesn't work, there's a second one that'll carry over to it. Now, what great businesses have, not just great practices, but great businesses, is they have multiple avenues by which new patients or new business can come in. So they've got a properly set up website, they've got consistent social media presence, they've got paid strategies, whether it be via Google or Facebook, Instagram ads there as well. They're probably sending weekly or maybe monthly emails out to their customers. They've got an optimized Google My Business, internal referral programs, and they might even have monthly or quarterly events. So at any one time, if multiples of these avenues aren't working, there are other avenues, there are redundancies there in place to mean that they still have new business coming in. Got a question for you at the moment. How many of these avenues do you have? When I think about it like this, I think about like how many offers are you putting out to your community right now, inviting them into your practice? In how many different avenues are you out there building goodwill, having more people know you, like you, and trust you? Now, the answer to that question probably tells me a lot about your business. If there's not many avenues, it probably tells me that you don't have a very predictable flow of new business in. And we don't have a predictable flow of new business, it gets really stressful, particularly in the early years. Now, if you're well more established, maybe 20 plus years in practice like I am, then that word of mouth starts to build there too. But we don't have just that one avenue of new patients coming into us, even in a 20-year-old practice. So, what is it that nobody's telling you about marketing? What they're not telling you is that you will fail more often than you will succeed. You'll get more no's than yeses, which is why it's important that you have two systems in place. And that first system is that you build a failure tolerance. You get resistance to failure and you don't let failure paralyze you, okay? We learn to move on. And the second is we want to have not just one single point of failure. We need to have redundancy in there. You need to build multiple avenues that you can have new business coming in to see you. Now, it's not expected that you'll have all those avenues that I talked about right away. It might take 1 or 2 years. One of the other mistakes that I see many of you making is that you try to get all of these implemented next week. You start off with this enormous amount of energy, but we get literally burnt out and none of it gets done. Slow and steady wins the race. Work your way through them. Is your website set up and optimized? Do you have Google My Business there? Do you have an internal referral program? Are you running events? Are you posting regularly on your social media feeds? Are you doing some paid advertising via the social media platforms and via Google? Start with the one that excites you, maybe the one that you find most easiest. When you start to implement these multiple systems, multiple avenues through there, you can have a much more predictable flow of new patients coming into your practice. When that happens, life gets a whole bunch easier. Gang, that's the truth of what happens with marketing. Until next time, thanks for all that you do. Keep saving lives. I look forward to seeing you back here again real soon. Hey, a quick ask. If you haven't liked and or given me a comment, a review on the podcast, can you do that for me, please? It helps me reach more people. It's really important, particularly when I'm inviting guests onto the show. One of the things they look at is the star rating of the show and then also some of the reviews there as well. As they start to get better, I can have more reach, which means I can have even better quality guests on here. It means I can help you even more. It'll take just a couple of moments. Go to your favorite podcast app, give me a star rating, write me a review. Gang, that's it. Until next time, see you all real soon. Bye. If you enjoyed listening to this podcast, you have to come and check out the Community Influencer Program. It's my monthly coaching program where we take all this material and I'll work one-on-one with you to apply, implement, systematize, and help guide you and your practice to the next level. Now you can join me on over at adiomedia.com/join. That's adiomedia.com/join. I'd love to see you in there.